So now, what you've all come for, this webinar, it's all about touring in Europe in your motorhome, and it's presented by MMM technical consultant Barry Norris. So Barry, over to you.
Right, I'll start. Well, thank you everyone for joining me for this presentation, and sorry about the delay. I don't know what's gone wrong. Hopefully, those of you that haven't been to Europe with your van so far will in fact get some encouragement with this presentation. And those of you that have been before, then hopefully the section about Brexit and a few other new things will help you carry on. So off we go. We've got a lot to cover. Oh, right, it's working finally. So what we're going to deal with, we're going to say why Europe. We'll look at some of the basics. If you're going to tour, the things that are different in Europe. We'll consider the documents and the kit you need to take, and post-Brexit, some of the challenges that puts up. And then there's a few new bits of legislation we'll look at, and then we'll consider the summary and refer to some references. Okay, well, why Europe? Well, for me, the warmer weather has got to be a big plus. I like to spend 5 or 6 weeks to break up the British weather, winter, and then there's such interesting places. We meet different people, and it's just the pleasure of touring. We never know what's next, especially when we're going from air to air. And of course, in most of Europe, the roads are a lot emptier, and of course there are plentiful stops at the airs, as we'll find out as we go along in this presentation. Well, it was certainly warm in Benicassim on Spain's Mediterranean coast in February last year. This is about 80 miles north of Valencia. And you see by what people are wearing it, it's pretty warm in February. And later on, early March, just before lockdown last year, we had lunch overlooking the Mediterranean at a place just 50 kilometers north of Alicante. So it's a really nice time there. San Sebastian in northern Spain, well, need to be a bit later for good warm weather, say May. I think that was May a few years ago. Beautiful town at the back there, and then you can see in the background the old town, lovely restaurants, and then as you go up the hill towards the fort, there's a little tapas bars. Really great place to be. And of course, there's great food. Perhaps this isn't the most nutritional food. I don't know, the beer in Bavaria is pretty good and nutritious. But yeah, so there's great food wherever you go, something a bit different. Opportunities for cycling are really good in many countries. So I do suggest you take your bikes. This was taken in Spain, up in some hills. There are a tremendous number of cycle trails along the main roads and elsewhere on old railway lines like at home. In this particular case, we had to go up a mountain road off the bike lanes. But of course, it's quite, well, reasonably safe in Spain, because there they have a rule that motorists have to keep 1.5 meters distance from cyclists on the road, and they also have to drop their speed by about 20 kilometers per hour below the speed limit. So it's worth taking your bike. Now, I like going to club rallies. It's individual choice. We often go for a couple of club rallies and we do a bit of wandering in between. And you can see there on the left, 2 rally stewards. They've been there usually a week before you start camping, so they've got to know what's there. They've been to the tourist office, so in the rally hut you can find lots of information, and they organise walks, bike rides and lunches. So it's a really enjoyable social experience. You don't have to join in, but it's worth considering when you're going to Europe. And then even the small towns, this is a little town, I think near Montmartre in Spain, beautiful architecture. There's always something of interest around the corner. And then in Northern Europe, Ghent in Belgium is well worth a visit. I think we stayed in a campsite nearby, but the bus service was really good. There's canals, a castle, great restaurants. And then of course in Northern Europe, you'll get a tremendous number of battlefield sites like the Normandy beaches here with the remains of the Mulberry Harbour. And I think we stayed in campsites and airs while we were in this area. This is the Menine Gate at Ypres in Belgium, where they play the last post every evening. Fascinating place, well worth a visit. And we stayed at an air which we'll show you later. Of course, there's Brussels, there's so much to see. There's chocolate shops, beer shops, and the famous statue, of course, and the European headquarters. Amsterdam is great. Watch out for the cycles, they're everywhere. There's the Van Gogh Museum, Anne Frank's Museum, and a trip on the canal is well worth paying for. Even the smallest German towns seem to have much to appeal to visitors. They seem to have everywhere rebuilt after the war in the old traditional style. So they're very attractive places. And of course, then they're the German castles are worth a visit. But getting there, Europe is so accessible by ferry. You can get direct crossings to Holland, France, northern Spain, and you won't be on your own. You can see there's usually columns and columns of motorhomes waiting to go. This will probably be in about February a few years ago. Don't forget, you have to switch off your gas supply before you go on board. And if you've got a motion sensor on your alarm system, switch that off. As soon as you're at sea, the motion will set the sensors off. Another way of going, it's even shorter journey to France, is via Eurotunnel, just 35 minutes. The Eurotunnel do ban LPG powered vehicles, but the LPG you use for habitation purposes in your motorhome is fine. You just got to remember to shut off the supply before you drive on board. As we said, one of the easy things about touring Europe is plentiful places to stay overnight, and that's the airs. They're often located close to cities, towns, villages, often right in the center of the village. So it's really a good thing to have. Now, this is a simple free air in northern France, just parking up virtually like you would in a car park. Although it's free, you have to pay for the water. That's often the case. Some airs are found in the most delightful of spots, like this ancient French village, and you'll see in a minute the air is just behind on a grass area. Very attractive. It's just our bad luck that we turned up on the night that the pub restaurant was closed, but there you are. That's life. Not all airs are attractive. This was a place in northern France, but it's somewhere to stop over, and it was free. In Germany, they call the airs Stellarplatz, and what could be better than a river view over the Rhine? Now, this is a commercial air, and you'll find quite a few airs are commercial, and this one you needed to book in advance, as it's only a 10-minute walk to the Menine Gate. Vicarious Publications produce these excellent guides to airs. They provide coordinate locations, descriptions of the facilities and surroundings, and they come with a map, so you can really plan out your journey. Or as we find, you know, we get through the afternoon, get a bit tired, we say, right, let's stop, and then you can take your choice. These airs, it is first come, first served generally. So don't leave it too late, because in popular areas you might find they're full. You can, if you're digitally minded, then you can get apps for your phone, some subscriptions, some free, and that's another alternative, but that's my preferred choice, the books. As you're approaching the airs, you'll often see signs like this, and note that there's the 48 hours sign. That's the norm. You're only allowed 48 hours. They are just a stopover, and they're not intended for camping. In most cases, you can't put your chairs and table outside. They really are just for stopping overnight or a couple of nights within your van. The facilities you get vary from site to site. This one is a custom-built facility. You've got water, electricity, and in this case, you've got to pay with tokens, jetons, as the French say. which are bought at the local shop, but waste disposal is invariably free. You're more likely to find this sort of service bollard, a standard commercial bollard, and we'll see a little bit in detail here. You've got on the left there's the tap for drinkable water to fill up your tank, and on the right there's a tap which is for cleaning out your cassette toilet. So it's best not to mix them up, because someone's probably had his cassette funnel stuck up that tap just before you go to fill your tank up. And of course you can see the little trap at the bottom there of the slide where you dispose of your waste tank. That's with your toilet waste. There's usually a grill on the hard standing in front to empty your grey tank. Quite often you'll find water and dump stations on French and Spanish motorway service areas like this one. And again, bit of caution, this one has got petrol type feed for the water, but that water hose shares a compartment with the hose for rinsing the cassette. So there's a risk of cross-contamination. So perhaps some wipes might be useful, and a bit of caution how you use the nozzle. Now, as useful as there are many relaxing campsites for those longer stays, and this is a lovely site on the banks of the Rhine in Germany. In France, you'll find there's a lot of municipal campsites. Quality varies, some have been rather neglected, but the good thing is they're usually near the town. They're not all as cramped as this one, but I was lucky that I had a short wheelbase van at that time. Now, for families, of course, there are campsites geared up to keeping the children happy, like this one in northern Holland. And they even have restaurants to make it even easier for mum and dad. Now, one thing you must remember, an absolute essential, colour gas cylinders or flow gas exchange cylinders we have in the UK can't be exchanged in Europe. Someone may offer to refill them, but because the colour and the flow gas don't have an 80% cut-off valve, then you should not try and refill colour. Go for something like a Gaslow refillable cylinder, or perhaps if you've got a bulk tank, then Autogas is available at service stations in Europe, very much as in the UK. Electricity hookups can be different. Most of them do tend to be the blue Euro plug system that we have in the UK, but occasionally you'll find a 2-pin socket, and for that you'll need an adapter, which we bought at most caravan motorhome accessory shops. And on the right hand slide you can just see the white cable with the 2-pin plug there. You just plug into your normal hookup lead, which will then go into the box. And on the left, this European hookup, you can see the top two are 2-pin continental style outlets, and the bottom right hand is our standard European connection. Now, the other thing with European hookups is that over there they're not so fussy about how they wire the live and the neutral supplies, so sometimes they're the other way around from what we have. And this just means that if you've got reverse polarity, then when you switch off an appliance it may still be live. The best thing is buy an adapter like this. If it shows reverse polarity, try a different socket. If you've still got reverse polarity, then I would recommend then, as you should always do when you first hook up, try your RCD test button. If that works, then I normally use the power supply, even if it is reverse polarity. But remembering, say, if you want to fiddle with your toaster, you've got something stuck, pull the plug out, because it may not be electrically dead. Some European sites actually meter electricity supplies, not very often, And the usual standard is you get a certain amount of electricity each day with your pitch fee. And then if you go over that limit, you pay per unit of power. A-frame towing. Oh, now this has been a contentious item in Europe for many years. Some people have got away with it without being stopped. Others have. And in Spain, it's been known for people to be stopped and told then to drive separately, unhooked. And the problem is that most European countries only permit cars to be towed in the case of a breakdown. Now, our Department of Transport says that when you're towing a car on an A-frame, the car's a trailer, but Europe says it's still a car. So to be safe, you don't want to get stopped, put a car on a proper trailer. Now, especially in France, Spain and Portugal, you find that most motorways, you have to pay tolls. And you see toll balls, well, perhaps not quite like this. You'll have a struggle, most motorhomes getting under these, but similar to this, where you pay tolls. Austria and Switzerland are different. They require a vignette windscreen sticker for motorhomes up to 3.5 tons, and over 3.5 tons, you have to obtain a go box for Austria, and you pay a motorway tax in Switzerland at the border. If you want further details of that, see those two websites at the bottom. It's got all the details. Some of it you can fix up before you go, and other like the go box and the motorway tax, you probably got to sort out at the border. But for most motorway tolls, you'll come across a toll booth like this, where you have the option of paying by cash or by credit card or debit card. There's usually a help phone if you get stuck. If you want information on tolls, there's this www.tolls.eu, and that covers all the tolls in Europe, gives you general information. Portugal is a slightly different kettle of fish. They have two systems. One is like other parts of Europe, where you can have an electronic tag you can pay for beforehand. You can pay by cash or debit card. And the other system of motorways requires you to register your vehicle number plate and a debit or credit card, and it's all electronically dealt with. And again, you'll find that on the website shown there, Portugal Tolls. And if tolls are going to be a problem for you, and some of them can rack up some hefty bills, then if you go on to viamichelin.co.uk, you can plot a route, and it prices that particular route up for you. So that's worth looking at. Now, throughout Europe, the rules and regulations vary. They may all be part of the EU, but they still have separate regulations. So check out the speed limits for the vehicle, your vehicle in each country. In July's issue of MMM, we've tried to categorize the different speed limits for different vehicles in each country, or the most popular Euro countries. So check that out. Some countries permit on-the-spot fines by police, so don't be surprised if they demand money. They'll even take you to a cash point if necessary. Also worth remembering, speed camera location warnings in your sat-nav are banned in France, Germany and Switzerland. So it's worth taking out the POI information for speed camera locations on your sat-nav before you enter those countries. And surprisingly enough, dash cams are banned in Austria and Portugal. I don't know why, but certainly all the information indicates that's what happens. They're banned. Winter tires are compulsory during the winter months in some countries like Austria. In Germany, it's basically the same, but the law says winter tires are compulsory in winter conditions. And for winter tires, they don't mean just M+S, the mud plus snow notification. They actually will be looking for the 3 peaks and star sign that you can see on the image to the left there. That indicates it's a proper winter tire. Other countries have different requirements depending on the region and surface conditions, whether there's ice or snow. That's during winter. Now, legal drink drive limit is also different. It's lower in general, 50 milligrams per 100 millilitres of blood against the 80 in England, although it is 50 in Scotland. But in Eastern Europe, there's zero tolerance of alcohol. Now, a full set of documents are required for travellers, vehicles, and pets. So you've got to have proof of ownership. So usually that's the V5C unless you hire a vehicle, your certificate of insurance. We'll talk about the green card later, an MOT and everything else. But we'll go into more detail with Brexit shortly. Now, make sure your MOT is up to date, because the basic requirement throughout Europe is you need to be road legal in the UK to be legal in Europe. And you can't get an MOT in Europe, so that if the MOT expires during your trip, then you've got to make sure you get it MOT'd earlier than normal before you go. And do make sure your insurance covers you for European travels in all the countries you're visiting. Some companies won't include the whole of the EU. They actually separate EU countries into 2 or more categories. So just check that out, that all the countries you're visiting are covered. I always think it's essential to have European breakdown cover. But again, check the weight and length of your motorhome is covered. Particularly if you've insured your motorhome with a non-specialist insurer, then it has been found some of them might have a limit. Motorhomes over 3.5 tons are excluded, or over 7 meters perhaps. So check that out. Personal travel health insurance is important. The UK health card does not cover all expenses, certainly not repatriation, and often a lot more. It will vary depending on which European country you're in and what they offer to their own residents. This is typical of the range of equipment that you should be looking at carrying in Europe. Not all of it is compulsory in all countries, but none of it really is equipment that you don't need. It's worthwhile having all of that. The only bit of equipment I would say don't worry about is, you can see on the bottom right hand side, the alcohol-proof breathalyzer. They're no longer needed. The legislation was brought in 2012. There's not been any punishment for not carrying them. And recently, even the requirement to carry them in your motorhome was abandoned. So that's no longer needed. Getting used to driving on the right, it's a bit daunting at first for newcomers, but you soon get used to it. I find this little sticker shown on the bottom left-hand side, a windscreen sticker, for the first few hours of being in Europe, I find that's a useful reminder. But as I say, you'll soon get used to driving on the right. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. Beam adapters are compulsory and essential if you're not to dazzle oncoming drivers. Eurolights are sold by Halfords. They're on the ferries. They're the best ones I've come across. Easy to fit, and I usually fit mine while I'm waiting for the ferry. Now, if you tow a trailer, or if you've got an extremely long motorhome that extends over 12 meters in length, Spain says you've got to have these yellow and orange plates on the rear. Now, as in the UK, European cities are setting up environmental zones. There's more and more of those coming about, and you can find information on the whole of Europe on that website there, urbanaccessregulations.eu. It's usually easier to buy the stickers online before you go. It works on the basis of what Euro rating your motorhome engine is. You can see there on the left, the green 4 is the Umwelt sticker for Germany, and the yellow one is the Critère for France. and you'll then see the signs as at the top, at the boundary of these areas, and you're allowed in if you have the certain sticker, or not allowed in, depending on what your rating is. But do buy the stickers from an official government or city website. You'll find plenty of third-party sellers. Maybe they'll give you or send you an official sticker, but often it's at a much inflated price. So watch out what website you use there. Oh, checklist. All that I've dealt with, all the things to take, it can look complicated. Put together a checklist, and once you've done it, you've got it for the next trip, and it makes it so much easier. TV, well, if you're an avid TV fan, satellite TV helps to a certain extent, but once you get about as far south as Bordeaux, the very focused beam for UK programs means that whatever the size of your dish, you're not going to be able to get UK programs. But the satellites will, well, your dish will bring in other satellites with non-UK stations. UK mobile phones, free roaming is no longer guaranteed. Now we're out of Europe, but there is legislation by the UK government which does limit what mobile operators can charge you before they notify you. Which brings us on to the big question now, post-Brexit. And on the left there is one of the many European headquarter buildings in Brussels. And perhaps the most important thing is, for those people that like to spend a long period in Europe, we're limited as Brits to a stay of just 90 days within any 180-day period. So that can be quite daunting for some, but for others it should be manageable, but you've got to take care with that. Passports now must be valid for at least 6 months, except if you're going to Southern Ireland. That's slightly different there, even though they're part of the EU. Now the EHIC card, if you're still within the expiry date, they're still valid. But once they've expired, they're no longer valid, and you have to apply for a UK Global Health Insurance Card, the GHIC, and that gives you all the same rights as you had with the EHIC card. Now, we did mention insurance. Now, you need to take an insurance certificate, but also now you need this so-called green card. I mean, what I'm showing there is simply an A4 piece of paper, an international insurance certificate. It happens to be coloured green. If you've got a trailer, the trailer needs a separate green card, and you'll get that from your motorhome insurer. And it's got to be paper. A digital green card is not accepted in Europe. So now we're down to driving licenses. You're probably better off with a photocard driving license, but if you've got a paper license, then you're best taking an international driving permit, and that's the grey document on the left there. Most of Europe take the 1968 version. If you've got good eyes, you'll see on the left that one is a 1949 one, which I got out when I went to Spain before we got out of Brexit, but I thought it was going to happen. And at that time, Spain were asking for a 1949 IDP, but apparently now they don't want an IDP, even if you've got a paper license. But say if you've got a paper license, or if you've got a photo card was issued in Gibraltar or the Isle of Man, then an IDP is worth having. Oh, the number plate. Well, we've all been used to for so long just having a Euro, Star and GB number plate. That's no longer accepted, but you can have a number plate designation if you've got, as you can see the photo at the top left hand, that can have either a GB just on its own or GB with a Union flag. That is accepted in general. Or of course you can have a GB sticker as I've shown in the center picture. However, if you go to Spain, the GB or Union flag with the Union flag number plate isn't accepted. You have to have a GB sticker on your vehicle. Don't know why, but Spain has something different. Now, the other major change is on imports of food, and it's not just export, it's personal imports of food. Meat, dairy products, and products containing these items cannot be taken into the EU. So as I see it, you can't take your butter, your spread, bottle of milk, meat. It's no longer permitted. Exemptions do exist for powdered baby milk, baby food, and pet food, but pet food only where it's required for medical reasons. But you can take limited amounts of fish, fruit, vegetables, eggs, and honey. I think snails are allowed as well, but I don't know that you'd be taking many of those. Now, because the problem for dog owners is that most animal foods contain meat or meat derivatives. So unless your animal has health problems, then they've got to become vegetarians or fish eating, or your first stop in Europe is a supermarket, although you could share a croissant at a service station, I guess. You can no longer use an EU pet passport. Now you need an AHC, Animal Health Certificate. And if you're going to Northern Ireland, because Northern Ireland have got this peculiar status of one foot in the UK and one foot in the EU, you've got to have this AHC for your dog or pet. Interestingly, if a Northern Ireland resident comes over here, he doesn't need any certificate. He can bring what food he likes. But when he tries to go back home, he can't take his dog home unless he has an AHC. But there's a lot of information on the gov.uk website. So if you've got a dog, it's worth looking at that and seeing what you need to do to get your AHC for your dog or other pet. Right, what's new? Well, the French are challenging us yet again, as they tend to. And they've said vehicles with a total authorised load weight over 3.5 tonnes have to have designated stickers on the side and rear when in urban areas. And to be fair, it's good. There's value in it. They're designed to help protect vulnerable road users like cyclists, because HG vehicles have significant blind spots. And we have checked the regulations do apply to foreign motorhomes. It's not just the French residents. So you can have just a small 6.4 metre panel van, but if you've perhaps uprated it to 3.75 tonnes, you're caught up in the regulations. You know it hasn't got a blind spot. We're still trying to confirm with the French authorities as the definition of total authorised weight. Does this refer to the combined weight when you turn a trailer? Because they have a similar combined weight requirement when it comes to speed limits when towing. But at the moment, you can certainly take it. If you're over 3.5 tonnes on your van, then you need these stickers on the side and on the back. And of course, if you've got a trailer, you need to have the stickers on the trailer as well. And just a matter of interest, Transport for London have also got blind spot regulations, but they set the bar at 12 tonnes. And I think we can all accept that there are significant blind spots due to the height of the cab and the length of the vehicle when you've got a 12-tonne vehicle. But the law is a law, even if it's the French law. In Portugal, there's new legislation for wild camping, and nighttime stopovers are only permitted at designated areas. And Valencia region in Spain has also introduced similar legislation. So take care there where you stop, and that's where you need an app or a book on all the airs in Portugal. Right, we just have summarised a little bit. It's my view that a European tour is essential to get the most from your motorhome. I think you will find it really enjoyable. It's a good experience. But preparation for a tour, as you can see, with all the documents and so on, is the key to success. Also prepare your vehicle. And the important thing is you need to be road legal in the UK to be legal in Europe. Brexit problems, well, they're irritating, but they can be overcome. And there's a lot more information in the July issue of MMM magazine. If you want more information as well, a good source is the Caravan and Motorhomes Club Touring Europe publication. But both of the major clubs offer advice and help on European travel, including offering a one-stop shop for booking ferries, sites and insurance. And they're very useful as a backup when things go wrong. I mean, I was caught in the lockdown in Spain last year, and as Brittany Ferries cancelled the ferries, so the Camping and Caravan Club rang me up, rebooked somewhere else, and when Brittany Ferries cancelled that, they booked me into the Channel Ferry. So it can take a lot of weight off your shoulders. I mean, it's up to individuals, but they can be very helpful. SatNav, Google Maps are useful tools. Personally, I like a good map for detailed planning, certainly at the beginning of a journey. And I would recommend Michelin maps. They offer a good selection, national and regional maps for most European countries. Finally, the C word. I tried not to mention it too much. What we all do for the next year or so is going to be governed by COVID-19. I mean, like the rallies I mentioned with the clubs, certainly at the moment, the Camping and Caravanning Club have abandoned rallies for this year. We'll just have to see how things go. But to keep updated, refer to the UK government advice on the www.gov.uk, and EU advice, country by country, is on the reopen.europa.eu EN. So two very valuable websites to see if it's worth packing your motorhome up for Europe. Right, well, thank you very much for watching. Sorry for the problems we had earlier on, and any questions?